All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, Tom Platz. It's not very often that we get to say we have a physique update from Tom Platz, golden era legend, really competing primarily between the late 70s and mid 80s. He's now nearing 68 years old this June, and he's showing off here the thing that he was known for most, his legs, specifically his quads. Now, obviously at 68, they're not going to be nearly the same size as they were when he was in his 30s. But you can see there's still a pretty decent amount of size there for a guy that's almost 70 years old. But it was more the separation in this physique update that impressed me the most. For a guy at that age to still have separated, detailed quads like that, I think is very impressive. And again, when I saw this update, some of the people that I was talking about it with were, again, bringing up this the Masters Olympia. And in this case, I would say no. I don't want to see Tom Platz come back to compete at the Masters Olympia at almost 70 years old. I want to remember Tom Platz as the bodybuilder he was in his prime. He has absolutely nothing to prove, absolutely no reason to come back at 68 and try to do the Masters Olympia. I don't think that's really what the Masters Olympia is for, is a guy that's not only, the prime in bodybuilding, I would say, is mid to late 30s. That's the prime age. But there's still some guys that can look really good in their 40s and even in their 50s. But I would say 68 pushing 70 is more than just past your prime. I don't think you're going to see anything really competitive from anybody in that age range, and it really probably wouldn't serve any purpose. And the risk of competing at that age, I would say, far outweighs the reward. Because with the Masters Olympia being 40 and up, yeah, it's less risky if you're in your 20s or 30s competing as a pro bodybuilder. It gets a little bit more risky if you're talking about 40s and 50s, but that's not the same as a guy pushing 70. So no, I don't think Tom Platz is doing the Masters Olympia, nor do I think he should do the Masters Olympia. Tom Platz has nothing left to prove. He's already a living legend. Now, next up in the news, speaking of bodybuilders that haven't competed for quite some time, Phil Heath posting a physique update on his story with the caption, "New week, more progress to make," showing off a slim and trim midsection for a guy that hasn't competed since 2020, and still carrying a fair amount of size for a guy that seemingly has no plans to compete in the near future. It seemed like the Masters Olympia was certainly out of the conversation, considering the fact that the number he spitballed to be able to compete would be about $1 million. Obviously, they're not going to pay that to anybody, from the looks of the prize money at this point being $229,000 split between 10 divisions and the top 5 in each division getting paid. That's a far cry from $1 million for one guy to show up and compete. Although I do agree with Phil, he's worth a lot more than what they're paying. So while I don't think we're going to see Phil on stage at the Masters Olympia anytime soon, I still feel like he looks incredible. I've seen these updates online. I've seen how big he still looks in person. And I don't think it's out of the question at all that he could step on stage again. He's still carrying enough size to be competitive, and I don't think it has to be the Olympia stage. But in any case, for Phil, I think this physique update looks good, again, for his age, for the fact that he hasn't competed in a while. I think his midsection actually looks pretty decent here because he's a little bit leaner, he's a little bit more downsized than he was when he was competing in his prime. That could be a big part of it, but I think overall he looked pretty good here, and I think a lot of people that are looking to see a Phil Heath comeback probably got a little bit excited to see this update. I still don't think it's outside the realm of possibility, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Will Phil Heath ever step back on stage? And do you want to see Phil Heath ever step back on stage? And what show do you think that would be if yes? Now, next up in the news, unfortunately, we did get an update directly from Thor himself confirming that he did tear his pec, and that it seems to be the worst kind of pec tear, saying he believes that he tore the pec completely off the bone, and he still has to go in for an MRI to get everything completely confirmed. But he also specifically says in this video update that this is the worst injury of his career. So it seems like a lot of the fears that the fans had that this could be the end of the road for Thor in terms of him pursuing the all-time Raw total world record in powerlifting. It seems like those fears were a little bit justified, because I think in all likelihood, those dreams of Thor's are probably slashed here. This is a significant injury. Pec tear is no minor thing, and this seems to be the worst possible case scenario when you're talking about a pec tear. If we were talking about a lower grade pec tear here, it could be as quick as a month to recover, 4 to 6 weeks. But the severity that Thor has, we're likely talking about at least 3 to 4 months of recovery time for Thor here, or depending on the severity, if it is really bad, 6 months to a year before he even gets close to being 100% recovered. But definitely off the bone is not what you want in terms of a pec tear. But I'm definitely wishing a speedy recovery for Thor, and hopefully he is able to get back to it. And I hope that it's not the end of his run at a powerlifting all-time world record, but certainly looks like it might be. Now, next up in the news, speaking of torn pecs, a recent guest posing from Charles Griffen, he said he was thinking about not doing after he partially tore his pec a few weeks ago. Now, this is the difference, and I think this is a perfect story for this video, because this was a very, very minor pec tear that Charles Griffen suffered from during some incline dumbbell presses. And yes, you can see a little bit of an imbalance between his pecs for sure, but this is definitely not an off-the-bone pec tear. This is the type of pec tear that requires a few weeks rest, and then he's going to be back to normal. So I think this guest posing footage and Charles Griffen himself serves as a good example of the contrast between what Thor is suffering from and what a very common, typical minor pec tear really entails. He's already back on stage doing a guest posing. But I gotta say, I actually really respect the fact that Charles went out there and did this guest posing anyway. Like I said, he even said in his caption he thought about canceling it but didn't. Because honestly, A, he's injured, and that would probably be a good enough excuse to get out of it. I'm sure a lot of people would understand he wouldn't want to do a guest posing with a torn pec. But the fact that he did it anyway, I think says a lot about his character and doing what he commits to doing. So shout out to Charles Griffen, and I think that is probably a good segue into the next portion of the video here. So Big Ramy and Bob Ciccarello. They were able to meet up this past weekend and I guess squash their beef. And it's a little bit hard to hear, and it's a little bit hard to understand exactly what they're saying in this video, so I'm going to show you guys on screen what they said. Because it's almost May now, and that is when the Pittsburgh Pro is going to be. That Big Ramy, for the second time now this year, committed to showing up to be a guest poser at that show. Obviously, last year there was a lot of controversy with the fact that he committed to doing it and didn't show up at the last minute without telling anybody. He was a no-call, no-show. So in this video with Bob, he addresses that, and he also addresses potentially not competing at the Olympia this year. So I actually didn't catch that the first time that I watched this video because it's a little bit hard to hear exactly what Ramy's saying, but in the context of this particular exchange between him and Bob, I think that is what he's saying. So Bob says, "But that's up to you and your trainer, Chad. You put together the game plan, so you're not going to do anything until next year's Olympia, at best, right? So we don't need to see you on stage before that," asks Bob. And Ramy says no, referring to, I won't be on stage again this year, because that is what Bob asked. He said, you're not going to do anything until next year's Olympia, at best, right? Next year, 2024. And he says no, well, maybe in Pittsburgh. So to be honest, I'm not entirely sure if this is really Ramy saying he's not going to do the Olympia, or if this is just an example of him maybe not fully understanding English and understanding the question. I know his English has gotten a lot better lately, but honestly, there were several parts of this exchange where I felt like Ramy maybe fully didn't grasp what Bob was asking or saying to him. Like, he didn't fully grasp exactly what Bob was trying to say. I think this could be an example of that. But I also got to be honest, I don't like the fact that he said maybe for Pittsburgh. He said maybe in Pittsburgh, because maybe implies that maybe yes, but maybe no. But he already committed to definitely yes. I would honestly be pretty disappointed, and I think the fans will too, if Big Ramy does not show up at this year's Pittsburgh Pro. So honestly, I'm not entirely sure what to make of this exchange, if this is actually what Ramy meant or not. I'm curious to hear what you guys think in the comment section below. You can watch the video on Bob's channel, and you'll see what I said. I mean, it is kind of hard to hear exactly what he's saying, but it certainly seems like in the context of that exchange, Ramy was saying there's a possibility he's not going to be on stage for the 2023 Mr. Olympia. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below about that specific part. Now, the final story that I had for you guys today, a couple of updates from GoodVito. GoodVito linking up with Roelly Winklaar at the FIBO Expo this weekend. Absolutely dwarfing Roelly Winklaar in this update, and GoodVito now on the road to earning his Olympia qualification. He says he's going to be competing in the fall, closer to the Olympia. Now, obviously, Roelly is coming off an injury, and he's a little bit more downsized than he was, so you got to take that into consideration. But also, another update coming from GoodVito. One of the things that a lot of people are most impressed with when it comes to Vitaly Ugonikov are his quads. He has crazy size to his legs for his age and for his frame. And this video here is a perfect example of this after a leg workout, how pumped and swollen his legs were. It is pretty insane. Just the size of his legs. He's kind of like Big Ramy in that way. Just ridiculously, almost disproportionate quads. to the rest of his physique. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think in the comments below about GoodVito's prospects in the IFBB now that he's an IFBB pro, his prospects at qualifying for the Olympia and placing at the Olympia. Can he be a top 10 Olympian? I'm going to say it right here. I do think he is top 10 Olympian material. And I really think we need to keep a closer eye on him this year because I think when he does compete, he's going to make a splash and he's going to surprise people. So that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Make sure you like and subscribe if you did, in fact, enjoy it. And as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.